Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? If you can hear me, can you just please raise your hands? Okay, fantastic, great. Right, so again, good morning to all of you. Welcome at the session. Baie welkom vir julle. Ons hoop dat julle hierdie sessie sal geniet en dat julle 'n bietjie iets sal leer. I'm going to present the session in both languages. Okay, so let's start. My name is Ilse Stickling. If you have tuned in the webinars before, the online classes, you will know me by now. If you are struggling to hear me, so please make sure that your audio is on and that your speaker volume is turned up. Then during the session, you will automatically be muted. Then if you have any questions, by now you know that I like to talk a lot. So please, if you have any queries, that you just type it in the question box and that you also provide me with your email address so that we can give you feedback. Then on the right-hand side, you will see that you can download the presentations. The one is in English. Dan is daar ook een in Afrikaans wat jy kan aflaai. Okay, if you have any content-related issues about any subjects, you are welcome to send an email to academics@impact.co.za. And then if you are not registered with Impact and you have any questions, you are welcome to send an email to info@impact.co.za. Then please be reminded that these online classes are recorded and that you can also revisit these sessions on the website link that is shown on this slide. Nou, so as julle enige vrae het, tik dit vir my asseblief in die vraagboksie. Maak seker dat jy jou e-posadres ook daarby sit, dat ek vir jou terugvoer kan stuur. En dan maak net seker dat jy die Afrikaanse weergawe van hierdie voordrag ook net aflaai, dat jy dit ook in Afrikaans tot jou beskikking het. Okay, and then just a high five to all of you for joining in on such a cold morning. It seems like history has the tendency to meet when a cold front is always coming in. I hope where you are sitting that you have a nice mug of Milo or coffee or tea with you and that you will just relax and just pay attention to what is being said in this presentation and that you will hopefully learn something. Okay, vandag gaan ons bietjie kyk na sekere kwessies veral na die tydperk van eugenetika en apartheid Suid-Afrika. So during this session, we're going to look at some important aspects after eugenics and apartheid South Africa. Issues that people had to deal with. Okay, so we're going to focus on the issues of conscience, jou gewete, retributive, and restorative justice. Dit is vergeldende en herstellende geregtigheid in Afrikaans. Now, if you look at the picture there, you will see that you have the angel on your one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder, and that is basically just telling you what is right and what is wrong. So we're going to first look at your conscience. Nou jou gewete. So die duiweltjie op jou een skouer, die engeltjie op jou ander skouer. En wat is vir jou moreel aanvaarbaar? Wat is vir jou reg en wat is verkeerd? En dan gaan ons kyk na die aspekte van eugenetika en apartheid en hoe dit mense beïnvloed het. En wat was hulle keuses daarna? Okay, so first up, what is conscience? Wat is jou gewete? Now remember that we grow up in different cultures, we grow up in different religions, and what is acceptable to one is maybe not acceptable to another. But nonetheless, it has to do with your morals and values. What is right and what is wrong? So if we look at the conscience, it entails things like ethics, doing what is wrong, doing what is right, what is acceptable, knowing if you are doing something wrong, that it is wrong, and why are you doing things like this? Respect, to respect other people. You know, there's not one person on this earth that actually had a choice to be here. And why do some people disrespect other people, especially based on race and language and cultural things and all of those things like that? Because that all adds up to a moral issue in society. Then integrity, to do actually what you know is right. And honesty as well. You know, honesty has a lot to do with accountability. We are all human beings. Not one of us is perfect. We all make mistakes. But when mistakes are made, can you take accountability for your actions? Can you actually stand up and say, I know I did wrong and I'm really sorry about doing that and try not to do it again. Goed, so morele normes en waardes sluit in verskillende goeders. Respek vir die mense rondom jou, ongeag hulle agtergrond. Niemand van ons het die keuse gehad of ons gebore wil word of nie. Ons is almal op die aarde en ons moet leer om saam te leef met mekaar. Dan jou etiese waardes. Met ander woorde, kan jy regtig bepaal en doen wat jy weet is reg? En dit het dieselfde te doen met jou integriteit. Doen jy wat jy weet is reg? En dan ook eerlikheid. Eerlikheid het dan ook te doen met verantwoordelikheid. Kan jy weet wanneer jy verkeerd opgetree het? Kan jy verantwoordelikheid daarvoor neem? En sorg dat dit dan net nie weer gebeur nie. Onthou, ons is almal mense, ons almal maak foute. En dit is normaal. Right, so there you have a picture as well with the devil on the one side and the angel on the other side. Your conscience tells you when you are right and when you are wrong. And that is also portrayed in the other picture. Okay. So let's go on. Your conscience. In the eugenics program, remember eugenics has to do with scientific racism. If we think about the Nazis, if we think about the Aborigines, if we think about South Africa during apartheid and so forth, where one race was actually thought of being superior to all other races. And they would have this false science to try and prove that one race is more superior than another race. So the Nazis killed people who were seen as a burden to the state or regarded as inferior human beings. In other words, they did not fit the typical Aryan race. Now, the eugenics program was kept secret for a long time. Euthanasia, the killing of people, was kept secret for a long time. The gassing of people in death camps and so forth will also try to be kept secret from people. Now, obviously, this is a moral issue, because why would you try to keep these things secret? Okay, so in die eugenetika program, wat gebaseer is op wetenskaplike rasisme, het baie Nazis mense vermoor wat gesien is as 'n las vir die staat, want hulle die staat net ongelooflik baie geld gekos. So dit kon enige mense gewees het wat gebreke gehad het. En dan ook mense wat as minderwaardig beskou is. Dit kon gewees het as gevolg van hulle ras of hulle agtergrond of wat ook al. Nou die eugenetika programme en die programme wat in Nazi-Duitsland aangebied is hoofsaaklik as geheim gehou. Reg. En nou begin ons die vraag vra, hoekom het hulle dit geheim gehou? Daar moes 'n motief gewees het. En dit het baie te doen met moraliteit. What was acceptable and what was not acceptable? Obviously, if they kept this a secret, something was wrong. Right. I see that some of you have questions. Please, if you have questions, just type them in the question boxes. And again, if you can't hear me, just please check your sound system at home. Make sure that your speaker volume is turned up. Okay. Now, options in Nazi Germany was to speak up against human rights violations. But now you have to remember that this was extremely difficult. Place yourself in the shoes of someone living in Nazi Germany. Do you think you would have been able to speak up against Hitler or to speak up against Schutzstaffel, the SS? Do you think your family would be safe if you would have spoken up against Hitler? Okay. Onthou dat Nazi-Duitsland 'n fasistiese staat was. They would revenge if you spoke up against the government. In a fascist state, you are not allowed to speak against the government. No opposition was allowed. Goed, so jy kon nie teen die regering opgetree het of hulle teengestaan het nie, want jy kon doodgemaak geword het. Hulle sou nie net agter jou aangegaan het nie, maar hulle sou waarskynlik agter jou familie ook aangegaan het. So dis 'n baie moeilike dilemma om te, as mense die goeters uitvind, om te weet wat is reg en wat is verkeerd, maar die mense is te bang om op te tree. Right, so I think a lot of people in Nazi Germany would know what is right and what was wrong, but would be too afraid to just stand up against the fascist regime, because obviously you could be killed, or they could go after your family and kill your family. So this creates another moral dilemma. You know, by the time that you find out, when the secret is out and you know what's going on, are you actually in a position to do something about it or not? Right. So here we have examples. One example is Sophie and Hans Scholl, who started the White Rose movement. Now, this was a university movement that was opposing the Nazi regime. Now, by now, you should know what happened to Sophie and Hans Scholl, that both of them were captured for treason and trialed for treason, and both of them actually received the death sentence. So again, this has to do with the fascist state. No opposition is allowed. If you dare to speak out, then obviously you would be executed by the fascist state. But this was an important issue for some people. This was something that was highly unacceptable, and some people actually risked their lives to speak up against the evil within a society, right? But then also it had consequences. Then we also have the example of Oskar Schindler. Now, Oskar Schindler was actually Schutzstaffel. These were the soldiers that wore black uniforms, that also ran the concentration camps, the labor camps, and the death camps for the Nazis. Very important in the military ranks in Nazi Germany. But Oskar Schindler actually started to feel sorry for many of the Jews that worked for him in the Nazi labor camps. And he actually saved about just more than 1,000 people when working with him. So Oskar Schindler also risked his own life by trying to rescue Jews who worked under him, by trying to get them away from the gas chamber and so forth, and actually trying to take care of them. So this was very, very risky on the side of Oskar Schindler as well, trying to keep the Nazis happy on the one side, and then also feeling sorry for the Jews on the other side, and also trying to assist them or help them. So ons het twee voorbeelde hierso. Ons het byvoorbeeld Sophie en Hans Scholl. Hulle het die Witroos beweging begin op universiteit, en dit was 'n teenbeweging teen die Nazis. En hulle is albei dan ook tereggestel omdat hulle in teenstand was met die regering, en die regering, so te sê, ja, die oppositie was 'n oppositiegroep was van die regering. So hulle het letterlik hulle lewens gewaag vir iets wat hulle gevoel het is verkeerd in die nazi regering en menseregte skendings, maar ek dink hulle het ook goed geweet wat die uitkoms daarvan sou gewees het en hulle was bereid om daardie kans te vat. Dan het ons 'n ander voorbeeld van Oskar Schindler. Nou Oskar Schindler was 'n Schutzstaffel soldaat gewees en hulle was baie belangrik in Nazi-Duitsland gewees. Hulle was hoofsaaklik in beheer van die konsentrasiekampe, die doodskampe en die werkskampe. En Oskar Schindler het die SS en die Nazis probeer gelukkig hou aan die een kant en hy het so skelm deur probeer om Jode se lewens ook te red wat onder hom gewerk het, want hy het persoonlike verhoudingsbasies met hulle opgebou in die kampe en hy het dan ook meer as 1000 mense op die einde van die dag gered. Okay, now there are basically 4 classifications, 4 klassifikasies van mense wanneer dit kom by menseregte skendings. 4 classifications of people when it comes to human rights abuses. Right. The first one is you have your perpetrators. Jy het jou oortreders. Now these people are the ones that commit illegal, criminal or evil acts in society. So jou oortreders is mense wat onwettig optree, wat kriminele dade pleeg of baie evil dade pleeg in die gemeenskap as sulks ook. Goed, so oortreders kan 'n mens sê in vandag se tyd kan daar baie sielkundige probleme wees agter oortreders. Dit kan baie te doen het met die manier hoe hulle groot geword het as kinders. Daar kan ander redes wees, gewoonlik psigopate wat ingesluit word en goeters. So daar is partykeer verskillende redes en mense werk nog daaraan. Ons het kriminele sielkundiges en ons het forensiese profielmense en allerhande sulke mense wat probeer om uit te vind hoekom oortreders doen wat hulle doen. Maar in gevalle van menseregte skendings sal die eerste klassifikasie van mense hierso wees, die oortreders, die skuldige mense wat dinge doen waaroor hulle selde skuldig voel of dat hulle voel hulle het geen ander keuse as om dit te doen nie, maar daar is 'n verskeidenheid van redes vir oortredings. Then the second classification, bystanders. So dit is soos jou ooggetuies. Dit is mense wat sien wat gebeur, maar hulle neem nie self deel aan dit nie. Gewoonlik is dit jou sagter tipe mense wat saam met die oortreders uithang. They don't have the guts themselves to actually commit these crimes, but they want to be part of this group and they usually just keep quiet. So you would have some people like Nazis working in the concentration camps and so forth that will not be able to do some of these criminal acts and so forth due to personal reasons or whatever, but they need to keep quiet or their lives or their families' lives will be at risk and so forth. Then we have a third classification and that is resistors, teenstanders. Okay, so they will take action when they see something is wrong. So this will be typical like your Sophie and Hans Shaw. This demands a lot of moral courage. So om dit te kan doen, om aksie te kan neem as jy sien iets verkeerd word gedoen, is dit baie keer moreel baie moeilik om dit te kan doen, want jy wil doen wat reg is, maar jy weet ook wat die moontlike gevolge daarvan kan wees. Then it says they're open or secret. Some people will do it in the open. They will have pamphlets spread it. They will talk today, in today's time, to the media. They will speak in the public about these problems and so forth. It takes a lot of courage to do this because many times they know what the consequences might be. And then you have other people that do it in secret. So hulle sal dit eerder ondergronds doen or underground because they still believe that this is something that is wrong and something should be done about this, but they are more secretive in their actions because they are scared of the risks or the outcome that might happen. Dan die vierde klassifikasie is jou redders or your rescuers, and these are people that will save you from harm or danger. So they will try and save the innocent people. So for example, this is like Oskar Schindler, for example. He will try and save the Jews from danger or from harm. But he has to do it in such a way that also takes a lot of courage, because obviously he can also be executed by the Nazis as a traitor if they find out what he has done. Right. So again, the four classifications: your perpetrators, your bystanders, your resistors, or your rescuers, when it comes to choices, when something is wrong. Okay, so you can take a look at the Hans and Sophie Scholl in the part of your focus of Verken handbook textbook. This is on page 196. If you are using another textbook and you are not registered with Impact, it should be in your textbook. You must just find the page explaining the White Rose movement. Then where would you find Oskar Schindler? You will find him on page 192 in the Focus textbook. Dis die Verken handboek in Afrikaans. If you have another textbook, again, just please look for Oskar Schindler, and you will find this at the back part of the Nazi part of the textbook. Okay, then what choices basically did people have in Nazi Germany? Now, this is explained thoroughly in your textbook, also in the focus of the Verken handbook, between pages 195 to 197. So tussen bladsy 195 tot 197. Now, the first choice that people had was accommodation. You accommodate the Nazi regime. Now, one example there is the German Catholic Church, where you had one Bishop Müller. Now, Müller became also the Reich Bishop. Sorry for the spelling mistake there at Bishop. But nonetheless, Müller decided that he would not interfere in the politics of Nazi Germany, and Hitler said he would not interfere in how the church is run. So this is a mutual agreement between these two. Okay, so Müller actually supported Nazi Germany by doing this to protect himself as well as the German Catholic Church. Versus Niemöller. Niemöller then actually established the Confessing Church. Okay, waar hulle eintlik uitkom met die waarheid in hierdie kerk wat die Nazis teenstaan. So Hitler made an agreement with the German Catholic Church, again, not interfering in the politics, not interfering in the church. But then obviously other religious people would have a conscience where they would say, this is not on, this is not what God wants, we cannot turn a blind eye, we have to make people aware of what's really going on. And again, Niemöller, by starting or establishing the Confessing Church, that also had a lot of consequences, and it became very, very dangerous for these people. Then another choice that people had was exile. Now, exile in Afrikaans is ballingskap. So that's where you actually go out of your country due to dangers within your own country, and you try to make a living in a new place. Okay, so ballingskap, dit gaan baie sleg in jou land, jy gaan oor na 'n ander land toe en jy probeer 'n nuwe lewe maak in 'n ander land. Now, before World War II broke out, Jews already being prosecuted, before the start of the Second World War, lives of the Jews being made miserable and so forth, many Jews already at this period of time started to escape from Germany to other parts of Europe or the world. Now, one example there is also Albert Einstein, who at this stage already won a Nobel Prize for Science, and he went to the United States of America with his family. And this is also where he shared his on his sciences that led to the building of the nuclear weapons and so forth in the United States as well, where the Nazis originally started with the development of this. It was further developed in the United States of America, and the United States of America was then obviously the first country using the first nuclear bomb on Japan. Okay, then the third choice is defiance. Now, defiance in Afrikaans is uittarting. Jy tart die regering. Okay. It's dangerous to defy Nazi rulers. It took much courage. Okay, I see there's some audio problems. Guys, can you hear me? Can you just raise your hands if you can hear me? Okay, I see a lot of you raising your hands. If there are some of you again experiencing audio problems, please again just check your own sound systems as well. Okay. So defiance in Afrikaans weer eens uittarting. Dit was baie gevaarlik om teen die Nazi heersers en goeders op te staan en dit het baie courage. O, ek kan nie op die Afrikaanse woorde nie, verskoon daarvoor. Maar dit het baie van dit gevat om teen hulle op te staan. Okay. Now, this is an account from a Jewish survivor in one of the concentration camps. Now, a few years ago, this was in 2012, I was able to meet also a Jewish survivor that came to South Africa to speak here. And very interesting. He said that he was able to survive the concentration camp because he learned as a boy that if you stand in the queue right at the back, when it's time for food, that they would usually give them soup. The Nazis would give them soups in the concentration camp, and that this soup was very watery. And people were so hungry that they just ran for these queues. And he learned that if you actually stayed behind and you went to the back of the queue, by the time that you get your soup, you will get all the dried vegetables at the bottom of the pots. And that provided him with the necessary nutrients and so forth that he needed. And this was crucial for his survival. So it's very interesting to sometimes hear the stories of the Jewish survivors of these concentration camps to actually know what they went through and how they survived. Now, Eichmann was the head of the Gestapo, and this Jewish survivor mentions him in this witness account that he gives. So yes, if you hear the word or the name Eichmann, then just know he was the head of the Gestapo. Remember, the Gestapo was the secret police of the Nazi force. So he said, I'm a survivor of a concentration camp. My eyes saw what no man should witness. Gas chambers built by learned engineers. Children poisoned by educated physicians. Infants killed by trained nurses. Women and children shot by high school and college graduates. My request is, help your students to become human. Your efforts must never produce learned monsters, skilled psychopaths, educated Eichmanns. Okay, so you can see that the Nazis used a lot of highly educated people, and the Nazis were actually very advanced in a lot of things within Nazi Germany due to the type of knowledge that they had within Nazi Germany and so forth. But how these people who were highly educated could actually not see that they were doing wrong things, that they were somehow so brainwashed by so-called science that proved to be not good science or not trustworthy science at the end of the day. and that this should be a lesson to all people in the world. Remember, if we don't learn from history, we are bound to repeat history. So it's always important to learn from these type of accounts, because we know that this caused a huge impact in society, in the world. And we as the after generations and so forth still sit with many of the consequences of past mistakes. And if we don't learn from these mistakes and we don't learn to become more objective in studying these types of history and so forth, we are bound to repeat things over and over and over because we don't learn from history, right? So nonetheless, no matter how educated you are, it's your conscience, it's that emotional intelligence that still remains highly important. To know what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, and to do what is right by the standards of humanity. Okay, so there you can see at the bottom, propaganda by politics or objectivity. Are we going to fall for propaganda by politics or the media or so forth? Are we easily going to be brainwashed by certain governments to believe something or so forth? Or are we actually going to try and be objective, to understand both sides of why people act as they act, and then still trying to figure out what is right and what is wrong, and still trying to do what is right to limit and human rights abuses, and to actually build a world where all people have basic human rights. Okay, then we're going to start with retributive justice. So dit is vergeldende geregtigheid in Afrikaans. And the best example here is the Nuremberg Trials. And this is the trials that happened after Germany surrendered during the Second World War. So die Nuremberg verhore het in Duitsland plaasgevind. In 1945 het dit reeds begin, en dit is dan 'n voorbeeld wat ons het van vergeldende geregtigheid. Okay, retributive justice. The example there, the Nuremberg trial, so vergeldende geregtigheid, 'n voorbeeld hierso die Nuremberg verhore. Now, what is retributive? Wat is vergeldende geregtigheid? Retributive means punishment. You want to punish people who did wrong. Now, jy wil hulle straf. Now, it's a very controversial issue. Even at that time, it was a very controversial issue. You have people throughout the world that is for death penalty. You have people throughout the world that is against death penalty. A lot of people will say, you know, people deserve to be killed who kills other people. It's just right. And then you will have other people who say, you know, if you kill the perpetrator, you become a monster yourself. So there will also always be two sides to retributive forms of justice. And that is why we talk about a very controversial issue, because people will always be able to debate their sides of this point of view. Okay, what is wrong for one person is not always wrong for another person. Now, the example here, the Nuremberg Trials, it started in 1945, and they started by a trial for the 24 surviving senior Nazis or Nazi officials for Nazi war crimes that they committed. So obviously this will be your senior ranking positions. Dit sal jou hoë range wees in die Nazi magte. Dit sal dan ook spesifiek die mense wees wat oorleef het, en die mense wat die bevelvoerders was hoofsaaklik in die verdedigingsmagte van die Nazis. In total, 185 people were indicated in these trials as perpetrators. So it was not only the 25 senior Nazis or Nazi officials, but there were also other people indicated of human rights violations or criminal violations during the war, Nazi war. Okay, so in total, 185 people indicated in these trials. Now, what was the purpose of the Nuremberg Trials? Wat was die doel van die Nuremberg verhore? Okay. So for them, it was bringing Nazi war criminals to justice. But again, retributive justice, to punish them for what they did wrong. Okay, so dit was om die Nazi oorlogskriminele tot geregtigheid te dwing, om hulle te straf vir die wandade wat hulle gepleeg het teen die mensdom tydens hulle heerskappy in Duitsland. Now, this included a series of 13 trials, and this was specifically held in Nuremberg. Sometimes they also spell it N-U-R-N, so Nuremberg. And this was basically chosen because this was the annual site of Nazi propaganda rallies. So they chose this city, Nuremberg, for a specific reason, and this was to make a point that what they did was wrong. Now, the Nuremberg trials was by international court hearings. So a lot of people, especially from the Allied forces and so forth, you will have different people in the jury, you would have different judges and so forth on the panel from a variety of countries and so forth to make the court decisions. Now, the Nuremberg trials took place between 1945 and 1949. Now, who were indicated in these trials? It was mostly the Nazi officials, the high-ranking military ranking officers, German industrialists, lawyers, and doctors. Anyone who was associated with any crimes against peace and crimes against humanity in Nazi Germany. Okay. So dit was jou Nazi bevelvoerders gewees, dit was almal gewees met hoë range in die verdedigingsmagte van die Nazis, dit was jou Duitse industrialiste gewees, dit was jou prokureurs gewees en dokters gewees, almal wat daarvan beskuldig is dat hulle misdade gepleeg het teen vrede en dan ook teen oorlogsmisdade teen die mensdom in Nazi Germany. Okay. So these post-war trials being held at Nuremberg was then basically a symbolic end of the Third Reich of Nazi Germany. And again, why this was such a controversial issue is that if we look at what people would say also is that there are very, very few innocent people within a war. And there were other brutal human rights violations during this war regarding other countries as well. You know, there's a lot of rape by soldiers that take place in a war by various armies and so forth, not just the Nazis that some people feel. You will find gross human rights violations. There were two other fascist states as well, if we think of Italy and Japan as well. Japan's emperor actually did not receive retributive justice. He was not punished when he was caught. He was still alive and so forth. And the United States of America actually wanted to show the rest of the world that you don't need retributive justice. And they tried to, or Japan was then just made into a democratic country and so forth. So a lot of people felt that this was unfair. And this also leads to controversy to say, but how could you punish one side of the war? Is it just that you have this German thing also from the First World War? Why do other people get off freely for also gross human rights violations in other parts of war and so forth as well? So again, this becomes a huge controversial issue in history that people cannot agree upon. Okay, nou die uitkoms van hierdie verhore, the outcome of these trials. the International Court found all but 3 of the defendants guilty. So now if you imagine 185 people, most of them found guilty except for 3 of them. Okay, now 12 were sentenced to death, 10 were executed by hanging on the 16th of October 1946. Okay, now you will see that one of the members was not executed, was on the list, but not alive during that stage. And then also one of the other leaders that we're going to look at committed suicide right before he was to be executed. Now, I don't know about the date 16 October in history, but this is quite a bad day in history because this was also the day that Marie Antoinette was beheaded during the French Revolution. Okay. Now, 8 others received life in prison, and an additional 77 received prison terms in varying lengths, although the authorities later reduced some of these sentences. Okay, so op die 16 Oktober 1946 is 10 van hierdie gevangenes gehang. 2 van hulle, een was reeds oorlede gewees en die ander een het selfmoord gepleeg kort voordat hy sy doodsvonnis sou uitleef of wat ook al. Ek kan nie regtig sê uitleef nie. Maar 8 van hulle het lewenslang tronkstraf ontvang en dan 'n ekstra 77 het tronkstraf uitgedien van verskeie lengtes wat aan hulle toegestaan is en owerhede het dit later bietjie verminder vir sommige van hierdie lede. Reg. En dan van hulle het community service en sulke goeders ontvang. Okay, now this is a newspaper article, the outcome of the Nuremberg Trials, the New York Times. And this is where they say Göring ends his life by poison. 10 others hang in Nuremberg prison for Nazi war crimes. Doomed men on gallows pray for Germany. Okay. Now, Göring himself was the head of the Air Force, the Nazi Air Force. He obviously showed no remorse during the trials at Nuremberg. And he then ended his life shortly before he was to be hanged. Now, what German officials did just before the Second World War was to actually put cyanide within their teeth capsules. Okay, so when a situation becomes very dangerous, they would just bite extremely hard on this tooth to break the tooth, and the cyanide will leak out and they will poison themselves to death. Okay, so baie van die Nazi amptenare het cyanide in hulle in 'n tandedoppie gesit in hulle monde vir ingeval iets sou gebeur het. Remember, treason is you can be tortured and so forth, and to avoid that torture is rather to quickly die. So hulle sou baie hard op hulle tande gebyt het en hierdie cyanide sou uitgegaan het en dit sou hulle vergiftig het en hulle sou 'n vinniger dood gesterf het wat beter was as om getortured te word, nê. Nee. Okay. Now, Hermann Göring was the head again of the Nazi Air Force, the Nazi Lugmacht. And this is an account of Göring during his trial. Hermann Göring took his seat in the witness chair. Göring gave his account of the Nazi rise to power. He told the court, once we came to power, we were determined to hold on to it under all circumstances. Now, the outcome was that Göring was unrepentant. He was not sorry for anything that happened. He was very supportive of the Nazis, no remorse during this trial, no conscience that he showed for his deeds. What he did, he thought was the right thing to do. He evaded no questions. He answered them truthfully, but in a very harsh way, that he would tell people what he did and he would be proud of what he did. He offered no apologies. He testified that the concentration camps were necessary to preserve order. It was a question of removing danger. Okay, so he believed that the establishment of an Aryan race was there, that all these people that were killed in the concentration camps were a threat and a burden on the state, to society, and so forth. And by showing no remorse, he showed that he had no conscience about killing people in Nazi Germany and so forth. Right. So there you can see the mugshots of Göring during the trial or just before the trial. And there on the right-hand side, you can see him as a Nazi official, obviously giving orders. He looks very strict. He looks like a no-nonsense kind of guy that's not going to take orders from anyone else. And they will do whatever it takes to adhere to the Nazi policies. Okay, now we're going to look at restorative justice. Vir die Afrikaanse mense, dit is herstellende geregtigheid. Okay, now this is quite the opposite of retributive justice. This is to restore something, not to punish someone. Okay, and the example that we have there is the TRC in South Africa, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So in Afrikaans, dit is die WVK. Dit is die Waarheids- en Versoeningskommissie in Suid-Afrika, and this happened after apartheid. Okay. The TRC was not a court like the Nuremberg Trials. It was not a court case, but it was a time where a commission was investigating political crimes committed during apartheid. Okay. So die WVK was nie 'n hof gewees nie, dit was nie soos die Nuremberg verhore gewees nie, dit was eerder 'n kommissie gewees wat ondersoek ingestel het in politieke misdade wat gepleeg is tydens die apartheidstydperk. Okay. Now, it's very much based on the truth will set you free. And remember that this was started by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. It's more from a religious perspective. Dit is begin deur die aartsbiskop Desmond Tutu, and obviously from a very baie geloofsperspektief af. This may lead to forgiveness and reconciliation, that punishing someone and killing someone in return is not the answer. It will not help to create better circumstances or things like that. Right. So during these investigations, you would have the apartheid perpetrators. Jy sal die beskuldigdes daar gehad het, die oortreders, as well as the family members of the victims. So die familielede van die slagoffers sou ook hier teenwoordig gewees het by die kommissie verhore, mens wil amper nie sê verhore nie, maar nou ja. Attitude of the perpetrators versus the emotions of family members becomes very important here. Okay. Because now you have perpetrators who did what was expected of them during apartheid South Africa. Again, many of them also just followed orders. Remember that during apartheid South Africa, there was also the point of view that white people is superior than other groups of people, and so forth, and human rights violations took place during apartheid against people of color. Right. Now, obviously, these perpetrators could either be just doing what the government told them to do. Now, during this investigations, they wanted to see if people could actually come out with the truth, what really happened during apartheid, because there were a lot of queries, people who died in prisons and so forth, and there's not a lot of answers and people still wondering. But if people could actually come forward and tell the truth, that maybe this will give some softening approach to the family members to actually know what really happened, so that they can get closure on some of these brutal events and so forth, and maybe that there can be forgiveness deriving from this as well. Okay, so it all depends on the perpetrators, the attitude, are they willing to cooperate? Are they willing to come out with the whole truth? Are they really going to show that they are very sorry, that they are going to show true remorse? Or are they just going to say sorry, but not really feeling remorse? And then the emotions of the family members. You can imagine yourself what it must feel like if you are sitting there with someone that is responsible for the death of a family member in your family. It is sometimes extremely hard, especially if you, respective of your religion and so forth, to actually just forgive someone, although the person is telling the truth and providing an apology. Is it really enough for you as a member to as a member of the victim to actually forgive this person for what he or she has done? So some family members were willing to forgive, to move on. Other members were not willing to forgive and obviously wanted to punish the perpetrators. But you can imagine that there's extreme hurt feelings on the side of the family members of the victims as well. Okay, now again, it's a controversial topic in history, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because a lot of white people and National Party members at that time felt that this was basically nothing else than a witch hunt, to hunt down people who were responsible for things during the apartheid regime and so forth. But why now, after democracy was achieved? Was it really necessary to do this? Many of them were just doing their jobs, were just doing what orders was given to them and so forth. And a lot of the family members of the victims that felt this is not right because these people should be punished. And now they can actually get away with these crimes by just offering the truth and asking for forgiveness and showing remorse. And this is not fair because this is not going to bring back the person in my family who died under racial conflict in this country. Okay, die Waarheids- en Versoeningskommissie, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, was led by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. So by die Aartsbiskop Desmond Tutu. Now, Desmond Tutu said the following: forgiveness will follow confession and healing will happen, and so contribute to national unity and reconciliation. Now, you must remember that this was now a very, very sensitive time in South African history, because obviously you now want democracy to take place. You don't want vengeance to take place, because this will not be a good thing to start a democracy. But again, there are so many emotions involved, because some people just cannot forgive the past. But in order to establish a democracy based on all groups of people and respect and all the things in the Constitution, you have to first deal with these issues. You have to stare them in the face, and you have to somehow get to a point where you can get out the whole truth and then try to forgive, so that healing can take place and people can move forward. And now you can see in South Africa today as well, there's a lot of people that still cannot get past apartheid. A lot of people are still hanging on onto apartheid due to past crimes and so forth, where there's still not forgiveness. There's still not dealing with what happened in the past, and people that cannot continue. There are many people that is still not happy with democracy that took place, especially some of your elderly people in the country and so forth, that felt that South Africa was sold out by a new democracy and so forth. And you will still see that South Africa, in some sense, is still struggling a lot with racism and the ability to actually move forward into a very effective democracy. And now you even sit with situations such as corruption and so forth, and all of these things not because of not dealing effectively with the past and actually being able to move forward. Okay, now in the Constitution, there are some words at the back of the Constitution that was published in 1996 that said the following: there is a need for understanding, but not for vengeance. There's a need for reparation, but not for retaliation. There's a need for Ubuntu. Now, that is a spirit of fellowship, humanity, and compassion, especially referring to African people, but not for victimization. That, again, if you want to respect all human beings and you want to promote a society that is not based on racial classifications and so forth, it is a very difficult thing. Vengeance is not always the answer, because this will only keep people in the past, and this will only keep conflict alive in a country and so forth. And that all people, especially in a very diverse country where we all come from different backgrounds and histories and so forth, that actually formed us all, that we should start anew. We should really realize what happened in the past. We should come to terms with what happened in the past. And then we should go through a process of healing and try to move forward. Okay, so it says there, if you want to create a true democracy and move forward, you need to be willing to let old wounds heal, forgive the past, learn from mistakes made, and restore what has been broken. Vengeance will keep people in the past and hinder true democracy. Now, you can also imagine this in your personal life as well. Jy kan dit amper verbeel in jou eie persoonlike lewe ook, nee. Sometimes you have a fight with a friend and so forth, and this actually makes you feel bad, and it keeps you from actually going forward or healing a friendship, and so forth. So there are things that people need to learn to deal with, and forgive and to move forward. And this is what the Truth and Reconciliation Committee was trying to get running in South Africa, is for people to know the truth, not to keep on wondering what happened during apartheid and all the secrecy in some cases and so forth, and to actually be able to find closure, to start to heal, and then to move forward. But again, you can imagine yourselves being a family member that lost someone during apartheid under brutal circumstances and so forth. It is extremely difficult to move on. If we think about crime today, also in South Africa, we know that crime is out of control. Basically, if we look at the numbers of people dying annually in South Africa and so forth as well, that this is not a sign of healing, that this is not a sign of moving forward. It's something that keeps us back, that if we want to move forward, we need to address these issues and so forth, that vengeance is not always the answer. Okay, the WVK, the TRC continuing. Now, people who had committed gross human violations during apartheid were promised amnesty if they came forward and made a full disclosure of the crimes they had committed. So, mense wat erge misdade teen die mensdom gepleeg het in apartheid, kon aansoek doen vir amnestie. As hulle die hele waarheid vertel het, en as hulle dan ook berou getoon het oor dit wat hulle gedoen het. They had to show remorse also for what they have done. And sometimes it was very difficult for the victims' families to actually come face to face with these perpetrators. Because many times, how can you forgive someone that did your family so much harm? So again, it's a choice that you have to make. A lot of people again felt that these people needed to be punished, that amnesty was not good enough because the perpetrator of this vicious crime could actually just walk free by admitting the truth and just showing remorse. And then some other moral issues like, are they just saying this to get away, or are they really showing remorse? How do people actually know that they really feel sorry for what they have done? So Amnesty, Amnesty is, jy kon aansoek gedoen het daarvoor, as jy 'n oortreder was tydens die apartheidsera, as jy die volle waarheid vertel het en jy het volle berou getoon wat jy gedoen het. Maar dan moet mense ook dink aan die slagoffers se families. Dit was baie moeilik vir slagoffers se families om altyd te probeer vergewe of wat ook al, want 'n mens weet nie altyd of iemand noodwendig die waarheid vertel omdat hy regtig berouvol is en of hy net uit die situasie probeer kom om nie gestraf te word nie. So weer eens kan dit lei tot 'n baie kontroversiële kwessie in die geskiedenis dat mense voel maar party van hierdie mense kom absoluut weg daarmee sonder om gestraf te word en dit is nie reg nie. And again, this all is within our own belief systems of what is right and what is wrong and so forth. Some people want people to be punished if they did something wrong. Other people would say, you know, I'm going to forgive because if I'm not forgiving, it's going to hold me back in the past and I can't afford that. Life is short, I need to move forward. But it all depends. Human beings are different. We have different emotions, we have different points of view of what is right and what is wrong and so forth. And we all deal differently with situations that hurt us as human beings. Okay. So there you can see a poster of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Healing Our Past. This was the first hearing in East London, 15 to 18 April 1996. And there you can see the hearing was attended also by a variety of cultural groups in South Africa, people from different backgrounds and so forth, to make the hearings fair and to also represent all the people. Then some photographs of the Truth and Reconciliation Mission. You can imagine that this was extremely a hurtful process. A lot of these people who were victims during apartheid never heard the truth. They just heard that the family member died in prison. Police brutality and so forth were kept quiet, for example. A lot of things being hidden, being done in secret and so forth in apartheid South Africa. And for the first time, these people heard things and heard testimonies from perpetrators. That was from the beginning again hurtful, because imagine you are living with not knowing what happened to your family member, and now hearing from the perpetrator himself what happened during these events. So you can think that these family members were hurt again all over, and that there was a lot of emotions in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission hearings, and also family members telling the perpetrators during these meetings of exactly what they experienced and the emotions that they went through, also so that the perpetrators could actually know the impact of their actions on the families and so forth of these people, family members of the victims themselves. And again, Desmond Tutu tried with this Truth and Reconciliation Mission to try and heal South Africa, to actually be effective, to go into a democracy. Because remember, from going to apartheid to democracy is a huge step in the way that politics works and so forth. He thought best that this is the best way, not retributive justice to punish people, but to actually try to heal the country so that the country can move forward. Again, different emotions from different people and so forth, all depending on the hurt inside of you. Are you willing to forgive? Are you willing to move on? Or was apartheid, the human rights violations, did it hurt you so much in such a way that you yourself just cannot find yourself to forgive a perpetrator? But there again, you can see family members crying, and then on the right-hand side bottom, probably a perpetrator there with Desmond Tutu, that showed remorse and being sorry for what he's done and so forth, and really trying just to move on and forget the past as well. Okay, then just to end off, ons gaan nou gou klaarmaak. Ek sien ek is al weer 'n bietjie oor my tyd. Julle weet mos ek is mal oor geskiedenis en nou net dan praat. Okay, so there you can see that spooky house there is representing South Africa's past, because it's a dark history in South African history. A lot of things that happened there that people are not sure of what happened, because there's a lot of secrets and so forth. And the Truth Commission is there to, if we don't find out what's in there, it will keep haunting us forever. So you need to actually know what went on in the past. The same as with Nazi Germany, the same as with Aborigine Australia, the same as with other parts of the world where human rights violations took place. The more you know about the past, you know, the more you can start to heal, and the more you can start to move forward and to say, you know, this is now in the past, we're going to move forward, we understand and we learn from the past. We will never forget what happened, but in order to actually move on, we need to understand, and we need to somehow get to a point where we can move on. The same with Germany today, where they learn a lot about the Nazis and so forth in their school curriculum, and how it impacted people, and then also to try and avoid certain things, right? Because the main aim of history is to learn from the past. If we don't learn from the past, we are really going to keep on repeating the same mistakes. And unfortunately, we can see that with world leaders as well, with important political leaders and so forth. A lot of them sometimes talk about issues and so forth, and then you realize these people don't know history. They don't know what happened in the past, because you can see, as someone who knows history, that people are tending to make the same mistakes again. And this is why history is such an important subject as well, because we can actually see tendencies, and we can understand the world that we live in, why it is what it is like, and for us to actually be able to move on into the future and not again repeat the past. Okay, grade 11s, graad 11s, ek hoop julle het dit geniet. I hope you learned something. So you can study these parts in your textbooks as well, just for a bit of revision and so forth. Remember to download the presentations on the right-hand side if you have not downloaded it yet. Onthou die Afrikaanse graad 11, dit is daar ook in Afrikaans beskikbaar, so laai dit gerus af in Afrikaans. Dan as jy enige vrae het, asseblief maak seker dit is in die vraagboksie. Make sure that your questions are in the question box, and then also please make sure that you provide me with your email address if it is a content related question or so forth, that I can provide you with feedback a little bit later on. And then guys, I'll see you again in 2 weeks time. Is that right? Okay guys, enjoy your weekend. Bye.